$6. That is what my grandfather spent one single time, at the feed store, on a bag of a plain white powder. And it is the last money his family ever spent fighting bugs in that farmhouse. Not roaches, not ants, not the silverfish that used to live behind the bathtub. Not one blessed bug got back into that kitchen for the better part of 20 years. Now, I want you to think about what you have spent this year alone. The sprays, the bait stations, the fellow you call out from the pest company who charges you $80 just to walk through your door. And still, you flip on the kitchen light at midnight and something skitters under the stove. I am going to show you the one thing, the one old, forgotten thing that the pest control companies surely hope you never hear about, because if you knew about it, you would never call them again. And before we are through here today, I am going to show you exactly how the old-timers used it. Not just on roaches, but on the ants in your walls, the fleas on your dog, the spiders in your cellar, every crawling thing that has ever made a home out of yours. Stay with me, because the second part, the part where I show you my own grandmother's kitchen trick most folks have never even heard of, that might be the most useful 5 minutes of this whole video. Now, I am Amos Miller, and I did not learn this from a book or a fellow with a truck and a uniform. I learned it the way most of us out here learn things, from watching the folks before us, and from making do without money we did not have. We did not have room in the budget for a monthly pest man. So when the bugs came, and they always come, we had to solve it ourselves, with what was already sitting in the cellar or the barn. And here is the thing nobody at the hardware store is going to tell you. Roaches, ants, fleas, bedbugs, spiders, the little silverfish that likes your bathroom, nearly every one of these creatures has the very same weakness. It is not a poison that stops their heart. It is something much simpler and much older, and it works on all of them at once, which is exactly why one plain remedy from an old root cellar can do the job of 5 different sprays lined up under your sink. Before I show you what actually works, let's talk honestly about what most folks try first, because I tried all of it myself before I ever went back to my grandfather's way. A can of the spray you grab at the grocery store runs somewhere around $7 or $8, and most of it is gone after 3, maybe 4 uses, because it only kills what it touches in that moment. It does nothing for the eggs tucked back in the wall, or the roaches that never crossed its path. The little bait stations run about the same, $6 for a pack of several, and they do help some. But a serious kitchen will go through box after box, season after season, and you are back at the store again in a month. And if you call in a pest control service proper, you are looking at $75 to $100 just for the first visit. And most companies want you signed up for a treatment every month or 2 after that, which adds up to several $100s over a single year. For a problem, a $6 bag of powder can handle just as well, if you know where to put it. The old-timers called it the fossil powder, though most of them could not have told you why. Nowadays we call it food-grade diatomaceous earth, and it is nothing more than the crushed-up shells of tiny water creatures called diatoms, ground down finer than flour. It looks like plain white dust. It smells like nothing. And to you and me and the dog, it is about as dangerous as chalk. But look at that same dust under a strong enough glass, and you would see it is not smooth at all. It is made of thousands of tiny sharp edges, like broken glass at a size you cannot even feel with your fingers. A roach or an ant does not have skin the way we do. It has a hard, waxy shell, and that shell is the only thing standing between the bug and drying out to death. When that bug walks through this powder, those tiny sharp edges cut through the waxy coating, and the powder starts pulling the moisture straight out of its body. Within a day, sometimes 2, that bug is dried out like an old leaf, and there is no chemical smell, no poison, nothing for your children or your dog to get sick on. Now, here is the part I want you to write down before anything else in this video. There is a world of difference between food-grade diatomaceous earth and the kind sold for swimming pool filters. The pool kind is heated and processed until it is mostly crystalline silica, and breathing that in is genuinely bad for your lungs. The food-grade kind, the kind you want, the kind that costs about $6 to $9 for a 2-pound bag at any farm or feed store, has not been through that process, and it is even approved to be mixed in with livestock feed. Read the bag. It should say food grade, plain as day. If it does not say that, put it back on the shelf. So let me show you exactly how my grandmother put this to work on roaches, because the placement matters near as much as the powder itself. You do not dump this out in the open where you walk, because it is not going to do a lick of good sitting where the bug never crosses it. Roaches like the dark, damp, out-of-the-way places, behind the refrigerator, under the stove, along the back of the kitchen cabinets, around the pipes beneath the sink. That is where you put it. Take a small bulb duster, the same kind of hand duster the old farm supply catalogs used to sell for dusting the garden. You can still find one for around $8, and squeeze a light, thin layer into those cracks and gaps. Not a heavy pile. A heavy pile. A roach will just walk around. A light dusting, so fine you can barely see it. And that roach cannot help but drag its body straight through it. Behind the stove, under the sink cabinet, along the baseboard where the kitchen meets the wall, into the gap where the pipe comes up through the floor. Leave it be. Do not wipe it up. Do not vacuum over it right away. This is not a spray that knocks a bug over in front of you. It works over a day or two, quietly, while you are about your business. And roaches being roaches, the ones that survive will carry a little of that dust back to the others. Give it a full week before you judge whether it is working, and keep it dry. The one thing that ruins this powder is water, so if it gets wet from a leak or a mopping, sweep it out and lay a fresh line down. Now, roaches were never the only trouble in an old farmhouse, and this is where that same bag of powder starts to earn its $6 many times over. For ants, you look for the trail, the little line of them marching along a windowsill or up through a crack in the porch step, and you lay the same thin dust right across that line. They cannot fly over it, and they will not cross it twice. For fleas, work it lightly into the dog's bedding or the carpet where he lies, left for a day and then vacuumed up. For the little silverfish that, like a damp bathroom, are dusting behind the toilet and along the bathtub trim. For pantry moths, a light line along the shelf edges where the flour and the grain are kept. For spiders, a line along the basement windowsills and the cellar door. For bedbugs, worked into the seams of the mattress and the cracks of the bed frame. Though I will tell you plainly, a real bedbug problem is one of the few things on this list I would not trust to powder alone. More on that in a moment. I remember my own grandfather keeping a burlap sack of this very powder in the corner of the root cellar, next to the potatoes, and a coffee can of it by the henhouse door. This was back before anybody in our part of the county had ever heard the word exterminator, and a man did not drive 40 minutes into town for a chemical spray when there was a perfectly good bag of dust sitting 3 feet from his own turnips. He would take a scoop out to the chicken coop every few weeks and dust the floor and the nesting boxes to keep the mites off the hens, and the same can went into the cellar corners each fall, before the cold drove every bug in the county, looking for a warm place to spend the winter, which, more often than not, was somebody's house. That was simply how a farmhouse was kept, generation to generation, and nobody thought to call it anything special. It was just the powder. Let me give you 3 quick examples, because I want you to see how this plays out in an actual house, not just in theory. Down the road from us, the Bontrager place had roaches coming up through a shared wall with the barn apartment next door, the kind of problem where you can dust your own side clean and they just keep marching back in from the neighbor's mess. Dusting alone was not going to fix that. What fixed it was combining the powder along their side of that wall with plugging every gap in the baseboard with steel wool, so there was simply nowhere left for a fresh wave to come through. Then there was a young family 2 farms over who had carpenter ants working their way into a porch beam that had gotten a slow leak from the roof gutter. That is a case where the powder helped keep the visible trail down, but the real fix was fixing the leak first. Dust a wet beam and by morning it is mud, not powder, and it does nothing at all. And then there is the plainest case of all, the one most of you watching probably have right now. Silverfish in a basement bookcase that never quite dries out between rains. A light dusting along the shelf edges. A small fan or a bag of rice in the corner to pull some of that damp out of the air. And most folks see them gone inside of 2 weeks. 3 different bugs, 3 different houses, and the same lesson each time. The powder is the tool, but it only wins if you also fix whatever is inviting the bugs in the first place. The gap, the leak, the damp corner. Now for that kitchen trick I promised you at the start, my own grandmother's second line of defense, and one she would use right alongside the powder, not instead of it. Take equal parts plain baking soda and white sugar. A 1/4 cup of each does a good-sized kitchen, and mix them together dry in a small dish or the lid of a jar. The sugar is what draws the roach in. Roaches cannot tell the baking soda apart from more sugar once it is mixed in. Set 2 or 3 of these little dishes wherever you saw activity, under the sink, behind the trash can, in the back corner of a pantry shelf, and leave a small dish of plain water a few inches away from each one. Now, I will be honest with you, because I would rather you hear it from me than be disappointed later. This is a slower method than the powder, and results can vary quite a bit from one kitchen to the next. Some folks swear by it, others find it only thins out a bad problem rather than ending it outright. Old-timers believe the baking soda reacts something fierce once the roach takes a drink of that water. And whether that is the whole truth of it or not, I have seen it work often enough over the years to keep doing it. Just do not expect it to work overnight, and do not expect it to replace the powder in the cracks. Think of it as the second layer, not the whole plan. And since I am being straight with you, let me tell you plainly what this powder will not do, because I have seen too many videos promise a miracle and leave good people feeling foolish when it did not happen overnight. This is not going to end a heavy, well-established infestation in one application, the kind where you flip the light on and see a dozen roaches scatter every single night. That kind of problem has usually been building for months, sometimes in a neighboring unit or a shared wall you cannot even get into. And at that point, the honest thing to tell you is to call a licensed exterminator, at least for the first round, and then keep the powder down afterward to help keep them from coming back. There is no shame in that. My own family called in help twice in 50 years, and both times it was the right call. And keep the powder dry, and keep it well away from where a small child could get a handful of it into their eyes. And if you are dusting a large area, wear a simple dust mask, the cheap paper kind from the hardware store. Breathing in any fine powder for an extended stretch is not good for anyone's lungs, food grade or not. It is a mild remedy, not a harmless one to be careless with. Now here is one more thing, and I mention it because I would feel wrong not to. You have probably seen those little plug-in gadgets at the hardware store, the ones that claim to drive every bug and mouse out of your house just by plugging into the wall and giving off a sound you cannot hear. I want to save you the $6 or $20 those things cost, because independent testing and more than one government consumer protection action against companies that sold them has found they simply do not do what the box promises. A roach does not care about that sound. Save your money for a second bag of the powder instead. And one more honest note, since I promised you honesty throughout this video. You will hear plenty of old folk tales about bay leaves in the pantry or cucumber peels by the doorway, keeping roaches away. I grew up hearing those same stories, and I will not tell you they are flat wrong, because plenty of good people swear by them. But I will tell you plainly, there is a lot less evidence behind those particular tricks than there is behind the powder you just watched me use. So if you are dealing with a real problem, and not just an occasional straggler, put your first dollar into the diatomaceous earth, not the spice rack. Once you have got the upper hand, the cheapest pest control of all is simply not giving them a reason to come back. Seal up the gaps first. A tube of clear silicone cork is $3, maybe $4, and 20 minutes with it around the baseboards, the pipe entries under the sink, and the gap behind the stove will close off more entry points than any powder or spray ever could. Steel wool, stuffed into any hole bigger than a pencil, is something even a mouse cannot chew through, and it costs less than $2 a pad. Keep the moisture down. A leaking pipe under the sink is practically a standing invitation, so fix the drip before you fix the bugs. And keep food sealed in glass or tin rather than the bag it came in. An open box of cereal or a bag of flour left loose in the pantry is exactly what draws ants and pantry moths in the first place. Do that, and keep a light line of the powder along the usual entry points once every season. And most folks find they never see the inside of a pest control truck again. So here is the whole of it, plain and simple. 1 bag of food-grade diatomaceous earth, $6 to $9 at the feed store, dusted thin along the cracks and edges where roaches, ants, fleas, and spiders travel. A baking soda and sugar dish as the second layer for roaches specifically. Cork and steel wool to close the doors they have been walking through. And the honesty to call in real help if the problem is bigger than a bag of powder was ever meant to handle. This is the same plain remedy that sat in my grandfather's root cellar for 20 years, and it still sits in mine today. It is not flashy, it does not come with a warranty card, and it will not work in one night. But it works. It costs less than a single visit from the exterminator, and it does not put a single chemical in the air your family breathes. If this saved you a phone call and a service fee, do me a kindness and give the video a like, and subscribe if you would like more of the old ways. There is a lot the old-timers knew that is worth remembering. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you next time.